to truly believe in the magic.
Welcome to Penny for Your Thoughts, an Orlando Magic UK podcast. We are recording on April the 3rd, 2026. We'd like to wish happy Easter to anyone who's tuning in. If you like the pod, a little bit of a gentle nudge, you can give us a like, a follow, subscribe, however it works on your platform of choice, but it really helps us get back onto people's algorithms. Tonight, I'm joined by two of the finest Easter bunnies you will ever see. First up from the valleys, everyone's favourite Welsh bunny. I think he's got something which you might need tonight. Jay, how are we doing?
Mate. Yeah, I thought I was going to get rid of this prop, the old army helmet or the old tanking, but I didn't. And here we are. It feels like a couple of seasons ago. Myself, I'm all right, thank you, mate. Yeah, obviously Easter's coming up, so nice couple of days off, time with the family, etc. I just wish it was a happier sporting world in my life. This past couple of weeks have been absolutely atrocious. I'm sure we're going to get into some of that with the Magic in a second, but Wales obviously didn't do very well in the football either. So, roll on 2027, I'd say.
Well,
how are you though, mate? You good?
All good, mate. I'm seeing tonight as it's going to be a bit like therapy, but I'm looking at Magic Twitter, for example, and I'm going to call it Twitter. It feels as though we might all need one of those tin hats for what might come at us. Who knows from this pod? And joining us, welcome back. It's the man with the liquid gold tones. Drum, how are we doing?
I thought I was going to be the hairy bunny.
You
I was looking forward to that intro.
Right, the hairy bunny. Drum, how are we doing?
All good, all good. Yes, yeah. I've got nothing to complain about, as you'll probably hear in a minute. I'm totally positive about the Magic, and it's all part of the plan.
Right,
Love it.
All right, this is going to be an interesting pod then, so we might as well get started. I didn't expect that from you, Drum, but if you're tuning into this, you'll know if you're a Magic fan, it's been a bit of a week. Context-wise, we're 40 and 36, and we are sitting 9th in the East as of recording, which is not what we would have expected at the start of the season. And to be honest, it wasn't what we were expecting, or I wasn't expecting last time we were recording. Sunday saw the Magic lose 139 to 87 in Toronto to the Raptors. It was a huge game. It was a walloping. We then beat the Suns 115 to 111, and then we took another 29-point walloping in Orlando in a massive game versus the Hawks. Now, we've got this feature, and it's called Blue Sky Thinking. And Drum, you're so positive, so we're going to come to you for this. We're going to go straight to it. Let's start with this positivity. The week that was off the back of the Hawks game. Let's hear something, anything. Give us something, Drum.
Well, yeah. I mean, as I say, this is why I'm so positive, because I've been really working on the blue sky thinking side. So let's get straight into it. Yeah, we lost by 52 to the Raptors. 52. And I have to say, at one point, I was kind of checking to see if we'd subbed out a completely different team, or maybe we'd only fielded 4 players. But, here's the thing. That game is now worth more to this franchise than any win this season, because that game is a baseline. That is the official worst it's ever going to be. Yeah. Every single game from now on until the end of time, you're going to look at the scoreboard and you're going to say, well, at least it's not the Toronto game, That loss is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. Paolo has a bad night and scores 11. Nah, not as bad as Toronto. We lose at 20. It's a moral victory compared to Toronto. Jamal Mosley has essentially given this fan base a permanent psychological safety net, and we can never be truly hurt again. It's not a loss, really. It's therapy, yeah? And then Franz Wagner came back after missing 47 games, and we lost by 29. His triumphant return lasted 20 minutes. He went 0 for 6 from 3, and he grabbed 1 rebound. That is 1 rebound. I'm fairly sure that Steph had more possessions in that game, but none of this matters. And do you know why? Because this guy played 20 minutes of NBA basketball and didn't re-injure his ankle. Do you know how massive that is? That's after 3 setbacks, 2 full starts, a Berlin disaster. Franz Wagner played 20 minutes and walked off the court with 2 functioning ankles. That's not a disappointment. That is a triumph, right? And the scoreboard said 130 to 101, but Advent Health said all clear. And I know which one I'm going to care about more heading into the play-ins, you know? And yeah, so we've lost 10 of our last 12 games. We fell from the 5th seed to the 8th seed and in 2 weeks. And, you know, thank God. Do you know who gets upset about falling from 5th to 8th? Teams with expectations. And do you know what expectations do in the playoffs? They crush you. Ask the Bucks, ask the 2024 Celtics before they figured it out. We have just relieved this team of every ounce of pressure. Nobody expects anything from the 8th seed. Nobody. If we win 2 play-in games, right, and sneak into the playoffs, they're going to make a documentary about us. We have accidentally created the most free, most liberated, most zero-pressure situation a team could ever ask for. Paolo can go out there and just hoop. There's no expectations, no pressure, just vibes. We haven't collapsed, yeah? We have strategically repositioned ourselves into the underdog role. And underdogs can win. You asked the Raptors in 2019. So yeah, we had 28 turnovers against Toronto, 25 against Phoenix, 19 against Atlanta. That is 72 turnovers in 3 games. We should really open a bakery, but we should certainly be a registered charity. Hey, look at that trend line though. Seriously, 28, 25, 19. That is a downward trajectory. So we're improving by roughly 4.5 turnovers per game. And if you extrapolate that, and I love to extrapolate things, we are going to be at 0 turnovers by game 3 of the play-in. That's 0, not 1. So we're not peaking now. We're not even trying to peak now. We are strategically scheduling our peak for the exact moment that it matters. Every turnover right now is just us getting the mistakes out of our system so that when the play-in arrives, there are no mistakes left. It's genius. It's long-term planning. Mosley isn't failing. He's just managing the pace. It's like a marathon runner, yeah? You don't sprint a mile 1, you save it for the end. And we're saving our good basketball for when it counts. Yeah, hopefully. So yeah, Jamal Mosley, let's go for him. He's currently the greatest insurance policy in professional sports, if you think about it. If we sneak into the playoffs and we win a round, yeah, it's incredible. It's a triumph against the odds right now. And Mosley maybe gets to keep his job and everyone's happy. But if we lose, what happens if we lose? He gets fired. And we get Michael Malone. Michael Malone, the guy who won a championship in Denver and then got sacked because the Nuggets are frankly insane. He's sitting there, available, tanned, well-rested, ring on his finger, waiting for the phone to ring. And we're in a win-win situation here. Either Mosley pulls off a miracle and proves everyone wrong, or he doesn't, and we hire a guy who has already proved he can win the whole thing. In my mind, and I know this is maybe a bit controversial, there's genuinely no bad outcome here. It's like, I don't know, it's like playing a lottery card where every panel is a prize. And Jeff Weltman, okay, he stood up at the start of the season and he said, and I quote, "Our goal isn't to win the East, it's to win a championship." And as we know right now, when we're recording tonight, we're playing Dallas. Right now, our goal is hoping that we're going to beat Dallas, and they've only won 24 games. So win a championship, and we're currently the 8th seed fighting for a play-in spot. That's a bit like announcing you're training for the Olympics and then you're pulling a hamstring getting off the sofa. Or at least the man has ambition. Do you know how rare that is in Orlando? I mean, we spent years being the franchise that was happy just to be here, happy to develop guys, happy to be competitive, happy to lose in the first round and call it progress. Remember those ones? So he's drawn a line in the sand and he said, right, no more of that, championship or bust. And yeah, right now it looks a lot like bust. But personally, I would rather have a front office that aims for a championship and falls short than one that aims for, I don't know, the 7th seed and nails it. At least the man has a destination, and we might not be getting there yet, but hey, at least the car is pointed. Anyway, he traded 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bain, 4. And we don't have a first round pick now until 2031. Do you realize my unborn grandchildren will be in school before we draft again? But you know what first round picks are? They're lottery tickets. Wellman cashed in 4 lottery tickets for a guaranteed payout. Bain right now, he's averaging 20 a game and he shot 38% from 3 in March, which on, frankly, this team makes him Steph Curry. The team's 3-point percentage is 27th in the league. And Bain is carrying our shooting reputation on his back like, I don't know, like a guy dragging a sofa up a flight of stairs. So wouldn't you rather have him right now or the mystery of whatever 4 guys we're going to draft between 2025 and 2030? Because I don't know you guys, but I've been watching the franchise draft for over 10 years. And for every Franz Wagner we've picked, there's a lot of other guys. I can't even remember the names of them. And kind of that's the point. Let's have a think. Victor Oladipo. Okay, he was a biggie, played brilliantly, just not for us. Jonathan Isaac. Yeah, he's the Minister of Defense, but he's played 136 games in 8 seasons. We drafted Fran Vazquez, 11th overall in 2005. The guy never even played a single game in the NBA. Not only that, I can see your face, Gary, but it's a matter of interest. Not only that, but we held on to his draft rights till 2024. That was 4 years after he'd retired. Mo Bamba, my favourite, the man who had a #1 song named after him before he'd even played a single NBA game. And the song still had a better career than he did. Super Mario Hetsonia averaged roughly 6 points across 4 seasons of inconsistency. Reece Gaines drafted in the same class as LeBron and out the league in 2 years. Jet Howard, and I know this could be controversial, but sorry, Jeff was drafted 11th and he still can't get off the bench on a team that is desperate for shooting. You know, Bain is the best shooter on the roster by a mile, certainly for 3 points, and he's under contract. Weltman traded hope for certainty. And in Orlando, right now, that is worth its weight in gold. So anyway, I'm going to finish up now because I've been waffling for more than my allotted time. But I have a personal point to make. You know, we lose by 52. We beat the Suns. We get swept by the Hawks. This team isn't inconsistent. It's providing excellent, fresh podcast content. I mean, this is great because if the Magic were just normal, win a few, lose a few, everyone plays about how you'd expect. What are we going to be talking about, guys? You know, yeah, good solid win, move the ball well, on to the next one. And that's like a 12-minute episode and no one's going to listen to it. But this, you know, this is great. This is content. You know, are we contending or are we participating with enthusiasm, or is this strategy or jazz? I don't know. Is this basketball or performance art with a scoreboard? Or are we a basketball team or an improv group with a hoop? I'm loving doing this. I don't think the front office actually realizes this, but they have built the perfect podcast team. It's frankly a bit of a shit basketball team, but it's producing outstanding content. And for me personally, and I'm sure for the guys on the team here, that's brilliant. So I hope the front office stay, going forward for at least the next 10 years. So we'll be in a job. Anyway, that's enough from me. Over to you guys. I hope that was all right.
No, keep going, Drum. Keep going.
I hope you're feeling positive after that.
A lot more positive than I was, yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We're going to follow. I think I got PTSD at least twice in that blue sky thing in Drum, because believe it or not, after Franz made his comeback, I was checking the injury report, getting flashbacks to Grant Hill's angles, and thinking, please don't be on there. I don't want to see your name. And then you said Fran Vasquez, and I was like, yep, he got me banned off Real GM for about 2 weeks for the suspension. So it was back in the day. So yeah, I'm done now. I'm cooked. Right, the Toronto. We'll go to the Toronto game. It was a walloping. Friend of the pod, Tom Sohn, great Magic fan, was in the mailbag straight after. And he asked the question, was it an overreaction from the fan base to the Toronto loss? Tom said no, in his opinion. Post-game, Coach Mosley said that was on him. That's Jamal Mosley, not Tom Sohn. And he said he has to do a better job getting them prepared with the sense of urgency Toronto plays with. Des Bain, the man who can pull sofas upstairs, according to Drum, said, I think we understood how big of a game it was in that, but I don't have nothing for that, quote Des Bain. G, following from what Drums just said and try and beat this, but was it an overreaction, to answer Tom's question?
Absolutely not an overreaction. For players not to be ready for such a meaningful game is absolutely not good enough. At the time, we were fighting with them for the tiebreaker, which was absolutely key, and the opportunity to have a leg up on Toronto. Given the circumstances, the fact that Brandon Ingram was missing, Emmanuel Quickly's missing. Now, I know we've had our injury concerns, but you had an opportunity to catch them on the hop. And other than the first 5-6 minutes where we looked like we compete, until that absolutely diabolical run that they put together, it's just not good enough. 52 points, as Drums mentioned, obviously the franchise history for a loss, which passes the previous one, which was 47 for your history buffs out there, which was against the Chicago Bulls in 2017 on a team that was essentially tanking. Toronto got 20 steals. It just felt like we just couldn't take care of the ball at all. Drums touched upon the turnovers, 28 in total, resulting in 39 fast break points. They just ran and ran and ran and ran us out of the gym. It's just simply not good enough. But you've got to tip your hat to Darko Rajakovic, who I think has done an absolutely sterling job there in Toronto. He really targeted an area that I think has been a real weakness for the Magic in the last 2 seasons, and that's the ball handling. He would put full court presses and really trap us, steal the ball, and then they're at the races. Or worst case, we get the ball over the line and we're looking at a shot clock with 12 on it, and we're struggling to get into our sets. And this is something I've been going on about a long time, and I know I'm a big Markelle Fultz guy, and I know Markelle was wearing the Raptor jersey on this occasion, but to have a ball handler who can actually dribble the ball, we don't have that. We really don't. They're capable, but they're not excellent ball handlers like your Kyrie Irvings. Now, I know some of them are few and far between, but that is a real need. A guy who can just find the pass, break the defense down, penetrate, kick, pass. It just feels like we're falling into this trap of just giving it to Paolo with seconds on the shot clock, try and do something. Now, Paolo's not to, he doesn't get off scot-free here. He's got to take some blame with this. 9 points on 3 of 14 shooting in a game of this magnitude, and a -30 for whilst he was on the court. Simply not good enough. The only bit of passion I saw in the whole game was God Shamgod on the sidelines in the third quarter, giving them an absolute rollicking. And you want to see more of that. The only other player, perhaps Suggs, in the first quarter, he came at it like a man on a mission, but obviously that sort of petered off. Goga Bitadze, what can I say about this man? I would have let him walk home from Canada. His effort in the last couple of weeks, for me, has been absolutely diabolical. Jamal Cain wasn't much good in that game either. Now, some stats for you statos out there. Goga was -22 in 10 minutes of play. Cain, whilst in fairness, Cain has come in, he's had a few good games, but in limited minutes, he's absolutely awful. He was a -32 in 8 minutes of play, including 6 turnovers. Game of that magnitude, they were ready. Absolutely nailed on, ready, knew their assignments. It just felt like we were coming to this without knowing what we were doing. I was a sucker. I watched the whole game. Now, the reason I watched the whole game is because I wanted to see my boy number 20 up there get his minutes. But and he didn't do very well. But obviously, but you've got to tip your hat to Toronto on this occasion. They were ready. They had a plan. They executed it. Nothing really good came from the game for me. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit disappointed I didn't see, a Woj bomb the next day, or Shams, sorry, saying that Jamal Mosley been fired, because it was absolutely totally unacceptable. And kudos to Dante and JT for finishing that game on the call, because there was nothing good about it.
It's interesting as well, G, when you were saying there about Coach Mosley, after the game, he came out and he put his hands up and he said that he blamed himself for that. And I think we'll go into Mosley a bit more later on in the podcast, I believe. But for me, that was a coach who knows he's struggling and went out there after, which, let's be honest, it was an embarrassment. And you knew when like towards the end of the first quarter, because it was late and I was watching live, I went, I'm going to go and just brush my teeth. I'll come back. So you've got a few minutes, come back. And we'd done nothing offensively. So in, like, say, 5 minutes, and I was like, we know what we're going to get here. We know what we're going to get here. And then just sitting there watching that run, I got to half time and I just went, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to just watch the rest of this on highlights in the morning. The second, it was clear through body language what we were going to get. And I think Mosley afterwards basically did the trick of, right, guys, I've just taken a bullet for you to try and get them back a little bit, kind of took one for you. And in typical Magic fashion, we gave ourselves a little bit of hope, which has been the story of the season. We had Phoenix come in. We got 115 to 111 win. And then that kind of shifted all of the focus onto Atlanta. And we've been embarrassed. We've been talked about in the media. There's been this whole Wood Mosley goal. We've won a little bit of good grace back, a little bit after the Phoenix game. Huge game against Atlanta. Another second chance, really, a second bite of the cherry to say we can still do something here. We had a promising start, and then we got another beat down off the Hawks. Atlanta swept the season series. They smashed us 51-37 in rebounds, which was the story of the last game against Atlanta as well. Atlanta's top guys, here's a few comparisons. Jalen Johnson, 18 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists. Alexander Walker, 32 points, 11-16 from the field. Dyson Daniels, 15 points, 13 rebounds. And then you're getting 12 points from Jonathan Kuminga off the bench, and even Caleb Houston coming in and going 3 from 3 in 3 minutes for 9 points. Magic, Goga Bitadze ejected, your favourite guy. Get 11 points on 3 of 9 from Paolo. 12 points from Franz, who's just come back, and Drum's given us a bit of the blue sky on that there. 14 each from Wendell and Des Bain. Bain going 5 of 13. Jalen Suggs, 3 of 12 with 7 points, 5 boards, 9 assists and 6 turnovers. And Jamal Cain giving us 17 points from the bench. We've got 9 from TDS. I'll throw something else at that before we go into it. If you look at the rebounding and you totted up all of our centres, so our 3 centres, they were out rebounded by Jalen Johnson and equaled by a point guard in Dyson Daniels. The team was booed. Mosley was booed. People walked out. Right? So before we get into some quotes, hearing those stats, Drum, if I can come to you first, and then I'm going to go to G. What's your thoughts on that outside of the blue sky hat?
Well, there is nothing outside the blue sky hat, but the thing I find interesting about this slightly, I mean, Toronto shot 57% from the field, 44.8 from 3, 41 assists against 11 turnovers. And then again, if you then look at the Hawks game, Atlanta shot 51% from the field and 40% from 3. And you kind of, so many times you kind of hear, when we come out there and the other team suddenly pull loads of threes out of the hat, which we don't expect. And we all go, God, aren't they incredibly lucky? Aren't they? And it keeps coming back for me again, is that we're not prepared. The reason that they suddenly become fantastic 3-point shooters and start getting these crazy percentage shots is because we're not defending. We're supposedly this great defensive team. And yet that every time I look at these figures, I keep going, surely that's a defensive issue. It's not the fact that suddenly these teams are becoming, there's this one player that's suddenly having a great 3-point shooting thing. He's simply not being defended properly. And so that's just one of the things that, I'd be interested to hear comments on it. But that's the sort of thing that comes to mind here. I mean, yes, they were terrible nights of basketball. We were unprepared. And I do lay that, as everyone has done generally, at the coaching side. And I think any team that comes out and doesn't have the energy to put in, yes, it's on the team, but ultimately it's the coach that has to sort of to pull them up and to give them the energy and the will to win. And that we simply aren't seeing that, because we keep saying this over and over in the pods as well. This team has talent. It has extraordinary talent. And I have seen consistently, and I've said this off mic, that it feels like what we're doing is that we play really, really, really badly against teams that we should beat, or we should certainly have a good chance against, but we generally lose badly. And then we play OKC or whatever, and we might not win the game, but we play really, really well. We give them a game, we take it to them, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, of course, that's the wrong way round. Because we still lose games even though we play well, and then we lose the games that we frankly should walk away with. And again, I put that down to, it's just something not quite right here in terms of the will of the team and where they're being brought. And Jamal certainly initially had the team with him, and he changed this, became this incredible family feel of a team. That was the the thing that he brought almost certainly when he was rebuilding the team and made it this thing. But that appears to be broken now. And without that was the USP. That was the thing that really brought him forward. And I think that is now broken. And without that, we are a bit lost.
It seems a long time since the high five, the dab that happened between Desmond Bain and Jamal Mosley when Bain arrived in Orlando. That seems to be an absolute lifetime ago. And Mosley himself saying about agreeing with fans booing, but you're right, there are people who come in here and they just seem to go off against Orlando, and it's not necessarily a coincidence. And then when the Raptors, the line on the Raptors was that they tend to beat the teams they should be beating and lose to the good teams. That's what Toronto's season's been. So when they beat who they're meant to be beating, they absolutely destroyed us, which is quite worrying. And gee, I don't know how you would follow that up. What's your initial?
Didn't the Raptors lose to the Kings then a couple of nights later? So it's it's the NBA, isn't it? Those three games, so the Hawks, the Raptors, and the Suns. If you comparing our team with their teams, our team on the court look like they're in day 2 of training camp. The other teams look like well-oiled machines. Everybody knows their role, knows where they need to be, knows their rotations, knows their spots, knows the plays. And we just look like an absolute car crash. Again, of going back to the whole point guard issue, that might be something, but obviously it's the coaching as well. And Quinn Snyder, Rojakovic are 2 excellent coaches. So you wonder how we'd actually fare if we had a decent coach, Taylor Jenkins, Michael Malone, for example. I thought we got quite lucky against the Suns. Now, we did start off pretty good. Obviously, it was a reaction from the Sunday night, shall we call it. But we did slip back into our own habits many a time. They came back. We just got lucky at the end. And, it was only some Desmond Bain heroics. And, I love Desmond Bain to bits. So he really bailed us out. And we got the W, and obviously, as you mentioned, Gar, we got disappointed again the night after. But Drum picked up on it earlier. 72 turnovers in 3 games is not winning basketball. We were lucky to get 1 win from them. So that's the ball handler and, being targeted by coaches who know what they're doing and our weakness. We can't score. Every shot we seem to take seems to be difficult. The offense is basically a slog as we're going. How many times in the last 3 games did I get that on that little ticker to say, Magic, no points in 3 minutes, no points in 4 minutes, no points in 2.5 minutes? It's too often. We need to be more consistent scoring the ball. Our offense is simply one-dimensional, so predictable and not difficult to guard. In a nutshell, all we ever do is cross screens for Paolo, be it left-hand side, right-hand side. We clear the side out. Happens all the times, and it's just easy for defenses to know what to do. The defense stand around, watch Paolo, try and make plays for other people instead of actually having him in the spots where he's good at. How many times have you seen a pick and roll for Paolo this season? Not many. Pick and pops. So this is it's down on the coaching staff for me. Why have we regressed so much from last year? When Paolo was supposed to be. This year was supposed to be, his name in the lights as the next star. I just don't know what's happened there. I don't know how you can be bad overnight after we've seen him come a long way in the last 2 seasons. So for me, you put it down to coaching. Obviously, the injuries doesn't help, and having the continuity of the team. But I don't know.
Interesting, G, when you were saying there about the Magic look like a team, like basically in training camp. Friend of the pod, friend of ours, Yadi, shared one of those efficiency, I guess, matrix, what you would call them, on Twitter earlier on, and it was by Kirk Goldsberry based on the last 10 games, and there's 10 teams who are basically in the terrible bracket for efficiency, offensive efficiency, and the defensive end, and the 10 teams: New Orleans, Chicago, Sacramento, Washington, Memphis, Milwaukee, Dallas, Utah, Golden State Warriors, and the Orlando Magic. That's your last 10 games of the season. So last 10 games up to now, we're in that bracket with 8 teams in Golden State who you would say are tanking. And we're not really looking at coming out of it either. We're firmly in the midst of it based on the last 10 games, which is poor. And I know there's been some shots at Coach Moles, and we're going to get into therapy about this in a second, but it's only fair if we give Coach Mosley's comments. And Mosley said, one of the hardest things to coach, and this is after he threw himself under the bus against the Raptors and put his hands up, one of the hardest things to coach, and there was a dramatic pause, effort. It's the hardest thing to coach. If at this point in the season we do not realize the importance of the games, how hard they are going to be each and every single night, then you've got to do a gut check, because you're down to 6 games left in the season, playing for a playoff spot. And if I have to coach effort, there is something. There was a little pause, and then there. That's from Coach Mosley. Kendrick Perkins, who divides Magic fans a lot on social media and in the media himself, speaking on ESPN. The biggest issue is the Orlando Magic has quit on Jamal Mosley. If we go back against that game where they played Toronto a few nights ago, how embarrassing that was. And it starts with Paolo Banchero, right? It starts from the top. How many times this season has he come out publicly, post-game interview, and threw his coach under the damn bus? We obviously don't want to play for Jamal Mosley, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's fired. Does he deserve to lose his job? Hell no. That's from Kendrick Perkins, right? So it's therapy time. We're all going to get a shot here, and we're just going to let it out, right? We're going to let it out for our listeners. So if you're driving to work or you're expecting a lovely Easter weekend and we ruin it, I'm sorry, but you might be feeling the same. If you want to fire shots, leave me and Drum alone. We don't have an army hat. G does. Direct them at him. We can stick media on if you like. So Moses just had his say. Most recent comments, Perkins, who I think a lot of the time we sometimes scratch our head at, but there are some points warranted there. We're all going to get a go. Drum, we'll let you go first. G, you have a go, and then I'm going to say a few things as well.
Okay, well, yeah, first off, I think Mose has done an amazing job from taking a poison chalice, which he was handed a few years back, and trying to recreate a team that actually could start winning. And I'm sure everyone remembers, the joy. Hey, we actually made a playoff for the first time for the first time, sorry, but for the first time in a long time when, with Vooch and Fournier and all those guys. And it was a big deal. Everyone was going absolutely nuts. We'd actually made the playoffs. And with Jamal, it's certainly in the most recent seasons, that's become the norm, the expectation. He's brought us to that point of, we fully expect to be in the playoffs. And certainly this season, we expected to be top 4 or whatever it happened to be. For whatever reason, and I suspect there's a certain amount of his being a nice guy. I think there's a certain element of that. And the way he coaches is to create an ambience and a family that's everyone in it together and all that kind of stuff. I think there comes a point where that, combined with a lack of experience of teaching, of coaching at that level, and actually having playoff experience coaching, that comes into play. And I think you start doing a very different type of coaching, probably a very more aggressive type of coaching. And that's, I think, where we fall down. I think we don't have the experience of playoff coaching, and he is falling back onto what he always does, and he does very well in teams where there isn't that much riding on it, and there is more leeway for failure. There is no leeway for failure in the playoffs, and if you want to be top 4, top 3 winner of the conference, and it's probably time to be looking elsewhere.
Okay. So moving on, you're ready to move on, Drum, and very eloquently put in the dulcet tones of Drum. Drum's ready to move on. Not
Yeah,
dulcet tones, by the way, G, but you're up.
No. I know, mate. No one's got nothing on Drum. No, I'd second what Drum's saying. The job he's done from the time he came in to build this team, especially up to last year, having this defensive identity. He was coach of the year candidate. Was it this time last season or was it the year before? So he has done a phenomenal job in building the culture. But the effort at the moment isn't there from the team, so it does feel like the team's quit on him. As soon as our heads drop, other teams start to make the run. I don't feel like he's got that motivational side to him any longer. I do think he makes a few mistakes in terms of when to call timeouts, rotations at times. Maybe they're not. I mean, I've watched. I'm not a NBA coach or anything, but a lot of the fan base think the rotations off at times. So we've seen enough cracks there in his management this season. This obviously are making us ask questions, given the level of expectation that we now have. And as Drum mentioned, it's the experience then. It's a tough one. It's a catch-22 because you need to obviously go through the motions to get the experience, etc. But I don't want the guy to get fired. Nobody wants that. But I think he's taken us as far as he can. Now, he hasn't really had, I think, as much support from the front office in terms of making moves at the deadline, where he could have. It's almost sit in your hands job and make sure that everyone's back from their injuries. And we are a good team when we're fully healthy, but he's not had that. So it's a bit with a heavy heart, that you don't want him to get fired, like I said, but it might be time that he goes.
It's interesting. I'm going to say a few things here. I'm going to kind of probably push blame around a little bit. I know we've spoken before about health, firstly. I don't want to hear about Orlando Magic injuries anymore. And I'm going to say that because look at what the Pistons is doing without Cade. Look at what the Celtics have done. I know I've said this before, without Tatum for most of the season. But I'm going to throw this in, and it's going to make things a little bit worse for people. This is how bad we are. We talk about what if. Well, what if the Indiana Pacers had been healthy? Because if the Indiana Pacers had been healthy, they're going to be in the playoffs. And if they're in the playoffs, that means we are battling with Miami to be 10th right now. That's how bad we are for starters. And that's with Giannis spending a lot of time sitting out with Doc Rivers as coach in Milwaukee. So for all of the rebuild, for everything that's gone in, we are actually in the same spot, really, as when we started this, as a team trying to sneak our way in and to get in and do something. There's a lot of talk about a head coach, and I know people saying there about Jenkins and Malone. Well, this is for the team, maybe. Maybe we should look up Stephen Hoff as a head coach. You might be sitting there wondering who Stephen Hoff is. Stephen Hoff is an Orlando-based heart surgeon. And maybe he can find the hearts that nobody else has been able to find this season. And I'm saying that because if you are a Magic fan, like anywhere else in the Western world right now, and you are sitting through a war, a recession, and a cost of living crisis, and you decide, and we're not in Orlando, the giveaways, the accents, and the pasty faces that you might be seeing if you're seeing this on YouTube, right? But we are not in Orlando. If you are a Magic fan in Orlando and you want to go to that Detroit game, I checked out the cheapest ticket for the upcoming home game against Detroit is $45. That is the cheapest seat in the house for that game. If you want to take the family of 4 to that game, straight away, you're looking down the barrel of $200. You're looking at what if you want a drink, it's at least $8, $10 to $15 for food, parking, petrol money or gas if you're an American, listen to this. So you're looking at north of $300 for one game, for one family night out at this time of, in the world we live in 2026. Now, you do not go to watch a sports team, any sports team, with a divine right to win. You don't. And if you're an Orlando Magic fan, you aren't sat here for the glory because there hasn't been any. Okay? So you aren't here as a glory fan. You're here because you want to be here. But if you are taking your family to watch the Magic play, and straight away it's $300 plus before any merchandise is bought, which could also come with it. $300 in this climate, and to watch that body language on the court and to have the coach call it out is unacceptable. And we've sat through a rebuild, and we've been the tanking team, and we've seen players who we knew weren't going to be here. I have watched this season and enjoyed the tanking seasons more than I have enjoyed this. In terms of expectation, this is the most disappointing Orlando Magic team that I have ever seen, and I've been here since 1992. So you're worse than the Dwight Mayer team. You're worse than the teams where you thought, oh, is it going to be Aaron Gordon's year? Is Mario Hezonja going to have a breakout here? Well, we've got Serge Ibaka coming in the doors. We've seen the Grant Hill experiment where his ankle sadly let him down. We've seen where we brought Juwan Howard in, which for me was the most disappointing Orlando Magic team. This team, with this talent level on it, is the absolute most disappointing ever. So we can throw blame at Jamal Mosley, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But the players, some of or most of, shouldn't be off the hook. There are players, I'm not going to get into specifics of who's who, but if you're watching a game and they're getting turned inside out in the paint by guys from the Atlanta Hawks, you've got a problem. If you sat there and you're going, oh, Goga Bitadze, and look at what Goga's done, and gee, I know we've spoken about this, and that's not at you, but tossed out that game. For me, he deserved to be tossed out. But that's frustration about actually how bad it is, and it's probably about as near as any of our centres got to doing anything during the night. And we're looking at it and going, wow, we actually went out to do a non-basketball play against a mid-level team, which is what the Hawks are, the same as the Magic, not slating the Hawks. That was what we had to do to compete against Atlanta. That's how bad we are. Mosley, front office are going to take stick. The players, multi-millionaires, by the way, on 7, 8 and 9-figure deals, deserve to be booed. They deserve it because the people in the stands are a lot of non-multi-millionaires. And we sat there in London and we don't have to watch through this 40-odd other games if you're a season ticket holder. And we saw what we saw in London churned out. And by the way, if you're sitting watching this and you are a Magic player tuning into this, God knows why you would do that. But if you are, and you're sat there, there were people in that arena who were neutrals. There were people in that arena who wanted to cheer the Magic. There were people looking for a basketball team. There were kids with parents who didn't know which way to go. And they left that arena probably a Memphis fan. And I heard it to my left from the kid on my left. The dad was firmly a Magic fan, trying to get the kid. The kid thought Orlando was rubbish and became a Ja Morant fan during that game. And that is what this does. We are not sitting on speedboats, fishing, having days off, and chefs coming around to look after us with the best training facility. So if Magic fans boo in the arena, fair play for showing up and sitting through that, however long it was, and paying your hard-earned money. My hat is tipped to you. As for what was said about the coaching, the offensive scheme is non-existent. If I was putting a crystal ball in front of me and trying to be Mystic Meg, UK listeners will get that one, nobody else will. I can see down the line Mike Miller, who is the agent of Paolo Banchero, coming out and saying, you didn't give a guy here to set the table for my man. I want him out. That is what's going to come. If Prunty's been brought in to help this offensive schemes, etc., he needs to go with Mosley. And I hate saying that because there's a reason I've never said fire Jamal Mosley. I have never said those words. But if he goes, other coaches need to go as well. So you can't sit there and say, oh, put Prunty in charge for me. You can't do that because you will get absolutely no difference. I am convinced the reason why Mosley is still there is Weltman's contract, from what I've seen, is up in the summer. That's what it looks like when I've done and reading into it. It looks like it's up in the summer. Does he want a firing on his record, or is he going to ride off into the sunset as well? Mosley looks like a deer in headlights. He looks like a dead man walking, and he had nothing else left to give. In that press conference following the Atlanta game, that was a broken man. And if you look at the body language through the season from Mosley, it has deteriorated. He knows. And he tried against Toronto to take the bullet, and there was nothing else left. And that was him defending himself at the end. And that was that, really. So that's where I'm at with it. It's poor, and it's going to lead in to the next question here, which has just gone off my screen because handily. But basically, Janine asked, what needs to be the number one change in the off-season? Are we looking at coach? Are we looking at front office? Are we looking at players? So I'm going to lead it in from there. I've had my rant. Sorry about that, anyone who's listening. Well, where do we stand on that one?
It's hard to pinpoint one issue because there's a multitude of issues. So, number one for me, coaching, and a coach who can run an offense. I've said my piece on that, so I'm not going to go into that anymore. So that is number one. Number two for me, the center position. You guys, you touched upon it a second ago, earlier in the show, Gar, when you said about the rebounding numbers. Wendell Carter Jr. simply isn't it. He'd be a decent, adequate backup, but in limited minutes, he isn't reliable in terms of health, and he gets bullied multiple times, most nights. Case in point, Jakob Poeltl, 4 points, 4 rebounds against the Raptors, and went absolutely missing in a game. In other games, I'm just trying to think the last 10, Jay Huff, a guy the Magic actually didn't take up from the Summer League, from the Indiana Pacers, got the better of him. Okongwu, Mobley, Holmgren, and that's just off the top of my head now. Goga as well. Okay, he's obviously, I had a quick look at his numbers. His numbers are slightly worse this year than last year. 2 points less, 2 rebounds less, a few less minutes. But I don't think he's given us enough off the bench, and we've been absolutely owned at the centre position most of the seasons. On top of that, offensive rebounding. How many, and you talked, Durham, earlier about the 3-point shooting. How many offensive rebounds are we giving up? We're not getting rebounding from, Banchero, Wagner, and the centres. How many moving screens do we get from these two as well, Bitadze and Wendell Carter? This is basketball 101. Set a screen, set your pick, wait for the hit, then move. Don't lean in. Do it properly. Turnover after turnover after turnover. And that adds up to this, obviously contributes towards that 72. Bench depth. That's the next one. A couple of seasons ago, best bench in the league. Cole Anthony, Joe Ingles, Mo Wagner and Joe Ingles had that beautiful little sort of chemistry and could, just put it in the right spot, and the offense was absolutely flowing. You had no issues with our bench coming in because it was going to either keep up or maintain a lead or eat into their lead. And then lastly, on the bench sort of part, you go back to the front office now. And now Jamal Cain's done okay. He's done okay. But when we had the trade deadline, we obviously traded away Jones, and we brought in Javon Carter, who's done exceptionally well, and someone I'd like to bring back as a backup point guard now. But we had an open roster spot. So for a team that wants to win a championship, what do? You go out and you get the best free agent possible. Use that 15th bench spot. Now, there was a number of players out there, and I'm sure there still are. But what did we do? And again, no offense to Jamal Cain, because he's come in and he's done all right, other than that Toronto game. He's given us a bit of a spark. But why'd you convert his two-way deal to a full contract? Under the two-way scheme, you can play 50 games. Now, you're not playoff eligible, but you can play 50 games. I looked at how many games he's played as of now, which is the 3rd of April. He's played 34 games. So he can play another 16. So why are we converting a two-way player into a full contract where he could play anyway? Ask me that. So I feel that the team's been let down by management, and good for Cain himself getting a full contract, but in terms of the team as a whole, not the right move. So that's some of my needs for the off season, but I ultimately it goes back to the front office and not having the support there and making some crazy decisions, really.
Gee, you had your say, and it's a big say. Drum, can you follow that?
Well, I mean, Janine's question sort of implies that, what's the one thing that is going to fix this, and there is no one thing that's going to fix this. There are multiple, points here that are weak, which we know. It's not even down to any one player. It's not even, frankly, down to any one coach on the staff. You can't just point at, I don't think, at Jamal and say, you're the problem. I think you have to look at the rest of the coaching staff as well. Yeah. I think you probably also need to look, dare I say, at the medical team and all that kind of stuff. The amount of injuries, and this has been said by the fan base before as well, but the amount of injuries we seem to sustain over the last few years, it kind of begs the question compared to other teams. I mean, yes, injuries across the league are up to do really with the way the game's now being played and all that kind of stuff, and the stress that it puts on certain parts of your body, which is untenable for a human to be kind of taking on at that level. But we do seem to have a lot more injuries than most. It's kind of across the board. Yes, there are players that are not stepping up. And yes, our front office is making, in my view, mistakes and probably being in sometimes a bit overcautious and sometimes making decisions that do look a bit crazy. I'm not I'm not in their shoes. I have no idea why they make these decisions. Maybe there's a good reason to do so, but we never get to hear any of that because of the nature of not disclosing information and keeping things out. And I work in entertainment and all that kind of stuff, and there is generally a good reason not to enter into those conversations and to keep people out in the cold, because it gives too much away in all sorts of different other ways. So again, I understand why we don't get that information, but also it comes with a level of trust from the fan base that the decisions that they are making sense. And I think that's what's being questioned. But okay, let's look a little bit further up the chain and just go ownership. I see there's a lot of questions about ownership as well, as to what's happening there. And should that need to be looked at? I mean, there's nothing that's been done about it. They own the team and that's it. But, are they also making the right decisions in terms of the team that they're putting in place on the front office to make everything tick? So there is no one point. If you ask me to answer the question, I would say the most important right thing is to get things to get right or to change is the coach. No question. I think we are in a position where normally when you have to change your coach, you kind of look and scrabble around and find someone who's kind of not really done much before, but is available and looks like they'll be good. We have at least 2 coaches that have had tremendous records. Obviously Malone wears his ring, and there's at least 1 or 2 others that have taken teams seriously far already in the sort of the championship. So we're in a great position in terms of finding another coach that does have the relevant experience that we need. And so that for me, to answer the question, is what needs to happen first more than anything else. But there is so many other things.
It's an interesting one because to answer the question, I think stepping back from what I think or what I want, etc., the thing that's going to change is the coach, because that's the easiest thing to change. But also, if you were a coach and you're watching the Magic and thinking, I could have a landing spot here in the summer, you are going to be quite worried about some of the body language and some of the things that are said by the players on the Magic right now. If you are a coach coming in and there are different offers on the table. So the answer to the question, I think it will be a coach, and that has to be because there is a young team and we'd be giving up on young players, and we've seen what happens sometimes when young players are given up on too young. So I do agree that the offensive schemes are terrible, and I'd said weeks back that our calling card, our identity had been the defensive side, and if that's gone, who are we? And let's be honest, apart from a few flashes, that's gone. That is gone. We are not a great defensive team anymore, and we're not going to stay in games because the offensive end, as you said, G, you've broken it down, but you can see that ball going in and you're just like, we aren't scoring on this possession. We aren't. The way that we defended here, we aren't scoring. It's not happening. And on the other end, we aren't stopping teams anymore. And we've seen times where we've locked teams up and there's been nowhere to go. Good teams as well. Like we played Milwaukee in the playoffs before when Cliff was the coach, and we came up with a plan to try and slow Giannis down when he was peak. And I don't think that Magic team, based on when they're getting rings run around them and just walked through against the Atlanta Hawks and out rebounded, they aren't doing that anymore. So it will be the coaching voice that does change. But I do think, as has been said, there are multiple problems here. And to try and end on a bit more of a positive note, I guess, Chandler Parsons was speaking recently, and he said if you're Boston or Detroit and Orlando's 7th or 8th, as G's hoping, for holidays and stuff, you're looking at a long, hard series. Drum, you were going to say something.
I was only going to come back quickly. I just the thing about whether a coach would want to join, given the way the body language is and all that thing. I disagree. I think a good coach will look at that. I'm hoping that Mike Malone will look at that and just go, what this team needs is me, because I can pull this together. I can make it work. We have players that are good. That, as I say, it's not a lack of talent here. It is a lack of pointing them in the right direction and taking off the leash and just say, go, 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 and making it happen. I think a good coach will see that as a real opportunity to take a team that needs a kick up the arse. They really do. You can't polish a turd. No coach is going to look at a team where the players aren't that good, but they've got a great cohesion and a bit of possibility. They're going to go, there's not a lot I can do with that. But if you take a team that is simply underperforming, not because of a lack of talent, but because of lack of direction, that's what a good coach will go, yeah, I can make that happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at it through the angle of from a different sport, albeit, but I've been there where I've seen players quit on a pitch, talented players, and perform way under their level. Multiple managers and coaches have a go and not really be able to do anything. And the word to get out within the game that this is a place you don't want to go because of the culture. And it just worries me that message might come out and cost us a good coach. Flip side, Drum, if you're a coach and you're at this level, you've got to believe in yourself and say, do you know what, I'll have a crack at that. And if you're getting a big contract, that's just going to help as well. And Mike Malone, Taylor Jenkins will be wanting to get back in the game. And we do know that Taylor Jenkins obviously has got contacts in Orlando on the playing squad that might make him want to come along and reunite. And so it is interesting. I think Mosley's going to get the season. If you can withstand the Toronto game and the Atlanta game, you can withstand anything. It's he ain't going anywhere now. But if you look at it, Chandler Parsons, a little bit pro Orlando at times for obvious reasons, has said that if you're one of these teams like Boston, Detroit, due to the talent, maybe he's got some blue sky thinking with Drum there. He says you don't want to play Orlando in the first round. Lou Williams and Michelle Beadle couldn't disagree more. Michelle Beadle, I believe, was even putting a watch up for a wager. So, Drum, I know G's view on this, I think. What's your view? We'll play Orlando in round one?
Well, from what the sort of thing, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's most likely we'll end up playing Charlotte. Yeah? Are we sort of...
Oh, that's the play-in that would be.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and so I think that we're probably going to end up with Charlotte, and given our record with Charlotte, and given where Charlotte are right now compared to where we are right now, I think there is a very strong possibility that we simply don't go beyond that. I mean, yeah, I'd rather have that conversation really before, because I actually personally don't think we'll get beyond that. If we meet Charlotte, then I think we're done.
I think we're done against Charlotte, but if we somehow got through it, would you want to play us? If you were Detroit, if we got through the play-in and into the playoffs itself, would you want to play us?
Yeah, right now. I mean, what? Okay, if we beat Charlotte, that would imply that we have actually managed to pick up some balls along the way, and actually play well. And yeah, maybe that would give a bit of momentum, which might give me pause to think. But right now, you look at the season that we've had over the last few weeks, I would quite happily take me right now because, yeah, we're not the team that we should be.
Agreed. G.
We're not, but we can be. And we had a 10-game winning. It's a 10-game winning streak. Yeah, was it 10 or 9?
I thought it was 10.
I can't remember. It was such a long time ago. We're capable. We are capable. And if you get when Franz Wagner came back in that first 6 minutes, now granted it was only the first 6 minutes against Atlanta, you just had another sort of, hang on, we got somebody else here who could do something. It wasn't totally one-dimensional. It's like, hang on, Franz can do something here. And obviously with Bain, Swiss Army knife, if Paolo gets aggressive, you don't just lose it overnight. You bring Anthony Black back in, off the bench. Tristan Da Silva's come on leaps and bounds this season too. Now you have a bit of extra good play from the centres. Until there's 0 on the clock and we're still in, there's always a chance. And I'm running with us. And Boston and Detroit especially, Detroit without Cunningham, they will want to face us. And I think we could take Detroit. I genuinely do. So you just said it before that guy, you knew what I was going to say. And I'm probably a bit like Chandler Parsons, a bit of a homer. But until there's zeros on that clock, I'm backing the boys. and I hope to be there to back them in the playoffs.
Well, I hope you are, G. And there's 6 games left. We've got Dallas tonight, New Orleans. We'll go to New Orleans, v Detroit, v Minnesota, at Chicago, at Boston. So 6 games. G, you can start us off. What's the rest?
Well, I've written down here, I just said all that, haven't I? And I'm going to come back and say, I think we can go 4-2. We have to beat the Dallas and New Orleans. Have to, no matter what. We'll beat Chicago, and then we'll beat one of Detroit, Minnesota, or at Boston. Obviously, at Boston, hopefully they won't have anything to play for at the moment. They're 5 in the win column behind Detroit. They're not going to catch them, and they're 2 ahead of the Knicks in 3rd. So they may be, down tools, as they say. So perhaps on that one, but it's at the Boston. Oh, no, it's not the Boston Garden, the TD Garden. But then Detroit, Minnesota, I can see us beating Detroit and then just laying an egg against Minnesota, such as the season's been. So I'll go with a 4-2 record, which would put us at 44-38, which I hope to God is good for 7th or 8th. So then we at least have 2 bites of the cherry for getting in the play-in.
Okay, Drum, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, we have to get 4-2. I mean, a 3-3 is the floor for maintaining the 7th, 8th seed. But yeah, I think we can, and we absolutely should, given who we're playing, do a 4-2 there.
I think we need to win 6, but we're not going to. So I think we'll get 3, maybe 2, but I think it'll be 3 for me. But we've made it through. We've made it to the end. Hopefully, we haven't driven anyone into a dark place. Maybe we should be posting some phone numbers at the end of this episode to help pick up stress. But fingers crossed, we all feel a little bit better after therapy, and we can somehow. It would be great if we could sneak into the playoffs. But if we can get one of the 7th or 8th seeds, we'd probably take that right now. Please, if you'd like this episode, drop us a like, a follow, a subscription, share us. Please don't come at us with abuse. From Drum, from G, from me, thanks for listening, and as always, go Magic.
Hoop shot